This is CBS News New York.
Breaking news at 11, a shooting at the White House Correspondents' dinner. President Trump gives a briefing after he and other U.S. officials were safely evacuated.
Melania was very cognizant, I think, of what happened. I think she knew immediately what happened. She was saying, that's a bad noise.
The president describing the moment's chaos erupted and giving new details on the alleged gunman. Good evening. I'm Jenna DeAngelis in for Alan Devlin. President Trump and D.C. law enforcement both held briefings a short time ago, recounting the explosive moments when a gunman opened fire at the dinner. Here's what we know. Sources tell CBS News 31-year-old Cole Allen from Torrance, California, fired multiple rounds before he was stopped by Secret Service and had at least 2 weapons, a handgun and a shotgun. The shooter hit a Secret Service agent on his bulletproof vest, but that agent is expected to recover. Let's get over to Andrew Ramos with details on this breaking news. Andrew, what an unnerving night.
Well, Jenna, the situation in D.C. is still active and very fluid at this hour. Just a short time ago, as President Trump was addressing the nation about this shooting, this surveillance video of the gunman rushing toward the ballroom, running past security, was posted on Truth Social. Sources tell CBS News the alleged gunman, Cole Allen, is alive and currently at a hospital being treated for unknown injuries. In that press conference, the president assured the American public that he and the First Lady are safe. The tense moments in a room full of journalists, all captured live on the air. This was the moment that sent the ballroom at the Washington Hilton into chaos. As the sound of 3 to 4 gunshots could be heard in the distance, President Trump, seated with the First Lady on stage, took cover and then quickly whisked away by Secret Service. Another angle of the ballroom shows attendees, which included several members of the president's cabinet and prominent members of the press, ducking for cover at their tables as they try to assess what's happening. Heavily armed law enforcement officers quickly swarmed the room. CBS News' Ed O'Keefe among the White House correspondents inside when shots were fired.
This shooter, alleged shooter, apparent shooter, was able to fire off shots outside the ballroom in an area sort of en route to this place. And that is what compelled the security to start running into the room to secure the president.
The president was evacuated within seconds and the dinner eventually postponed. President Trump holding a briefing about 90 minutes after everything unfolded, revealing that an officer was shot during the melee, but is okay due to the bulletproof vest he was wearing.
First Lady and I were taken very well care of, very quickly rushed off the stage. Vice President J.D. Vance, who's here, was likewise beautifully done. He was just saying how quickly everybody acted, law enforcement, Secret Service in particular in this case, but law enforcement. Marco had the same thing. Pete was there. Pete didn't want any help. He didn't want anybody to help him. He doesn't want anybody to help him, but he did get some, didn't you? And I think you also said that it was very impressive.
The big question many have tonight, how did this gunman get past security at this very secure, high-profile event with the president?
There were just so many people, the volume of people, it felt like it didn't take too terribly long to get through security. And obviously, given what's happened, this type of situation sadly was on our minds.
Now, the investigation into tonight's incident clearly still in the early stages. New information coming in by the second. Now, this photo posted just a short time ago on Truth Social is said to be the gunman on the ground being held by security after he opened fire. Again, he's being identified as 31-year-old Cole Allen from California. Allen is being charged with using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on a federal officer using a dangerous weapon. And CBS News has now confirmed through 2 law enforcement sources this image showing Cole Allen, the same man praised in December 2024 by a private tutoring company as a Teacher of the Month. Certainly still a lot developing in real time. The president vows to reschedule the Correspondents' dinner in the next 30 days.
As you said, Andrew, a lot of unanswered questions, especially emotive when it comes to this. Thank you so much. And joining us right now on the phone is New York Congressman Mike Lawler. First of all, we have to ask, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I appreciate it. My wife and I are doing fine. We're back at our hotel but it certainly was unnerving hearing shots ring out, and obviously then having Secret Service, Capitol Police, and federal agents storm the ballroom, and thankfully nobody was hurt, and the Secret Service agent that was shot, from what we gather, will make a full recovery. So we're grateful for that.
We are so glad that everyone that was there is okay. Can you tell us more about what you saw and heard? I mean, some people were saying they didn't even hear the gunshots.
So it occurred, the magnetometers are right outside the ballroom, and where the gunman seemingly ran by, as you see in the video, was right outside the ballroom. And so, we had heard a pop, and then, pandemonium ensued. Plates were flying, and once the agents came storming in, and you could hear them yelling shots fired, obviously given the number of high-profile officials in the room, it was chaotic, and you can see through video that's been posted, but deeply unnerving, especially with my wife there, and a lot of people were absolutely stunned by what happened, and so the investigation will ensue as to motive, but moreover, how he got a gun into the hotel. Seemingly he is staying at the hotel. How he got down 2 levels with a gun. So a lot to still uncover here.
Yeah, I think that's a big question that everyone wants answered, is how he was able to get into that building with guns. Well, we want to thank you for your time, and we are so glad that you, your wife, and everyone that was there is okay. Congressman Mike Lawler.
Thank you very much.
And it was frightening moments for everyone that was there, including some of our colleagues at CBS News. Joining us now is CBS News Chief Correspondent Matt Gutman, live from our D.C. bureau. Matt, so glad you were okay as well. Can you tell us about the moments that it all happened?
It is a word that's used too frequently, Jenna, but it felt surreal. I wasn't quite sure at first if it was a prank. We heard some dishes clatter, and President Trump talked about that as well. And then I looked at the sound of the dishes, or the sound, what I thought was a platter falling, and then I saw the Secret Service agents come running down the center aisle right towards the podium where the president was. Looked over there. He was already covered. There was a DHS or Secret Service agent straddling that long table where the president was sitting with a long gun. And it was clear that this was very real and it was happening. And in the moments thereafter, you see just a wave of people begin ducking under the tables. And then other Secret Service agents come in and they begin bundling off their specific VIPs, taking them out of the room from one exit to another. I was sitting right beside Steve Scalise, who had already been the victim of political violence, who had been shot in that baseball game years ago. He still has a limp from it, and he talked about being through cancer and that shooting and surviving. So obviously a very harrowing moment. I began crab walking after the DHS and Secret Service agents, following them out, trying to see the source of the gunfire, and went up the stairs and then saw some men grabbing a medical bag and trying to run up the stairs to render medical aid, we assume, to the Secret Service agent. But obviously a massively chaotic moment in front of many, many hundreds of journalists. If it was a political act of violence, it was one of the most visible and televised political act of violence in front of many, many hundreds of journalists. Another thing that is very surprising to me is the speed with which this investigation is unfolding. We already know the name of the possible suspect. We know his age. We know where he's from. We have seen video of this unfolding. There are images of the suspect. There are charges already, very likely to be followed up with much more significant and harsher charges. But this is unfolding as we speak through the night. We'll obviously know a lot more in the morning, but obviously just a massively chaotic and shocking moment unfolding in front of so many hundreds of reporters and press. Jenna.
I have to say it's difficult to look at the visuals from it and then to hear you recount it. I just cannot imagine being in that room. Can you tell us what the security at the event was like?
One of the things that actually surprised me when I first walked in, it was my first White House Correspondents' dinner. I'd never been to one before. I was surprised that we walked in, there were just guests, people having coffee in a cafe right in the front foyer where everybody entered the hotel. And that surprised me because I thought that there would be some sort of security cordon. There were plenty of security personnel outside. There were plenty of guards around, but there was no physical check until you went into the ballroom itself. Then it was a pretty standard magnetometer, Secret Service. There were a couple of layers of it. It did not seem like a massively robust security perimeter. But sometimes security personnel and the Secret Service take precautions that we don't see, that we're not thinking about at the time, and I guess I presumed that that was the case, and it may be the case. The Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, talked about multi-layers of security, and to some degree that worked. The suspect did not manage to get into the room or get within, I don't know, probably 50 or 100 yards of the room itself. But obviously a very much closer than anybody would have wanted any person with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives to get. The question, how did he get them into the hotel? We don't know. Maybe he was a guest. But clearly there was nobody stopping anybody armed from getting into the hotel itself in the first place tonight that we saw.
Well, I'm sure security motive, that'll all be the next part of the investigation. Matt Gutman, I said it before, I have to say it again. We are so glad you, all our colleagues, the president, everyone that was there is okay. Thank you for taking the time with us.
Thanks, Jenna.
Tonight, we also spoke with Manny Gomez, a former FBI agent and NYPD sergeant, about the security preparations that go into the event.
Most of the work is the before, and the before is the homework. Trying to ascertain any intelligence information, any information dealing with the particular event in hand. And the bigger bulk of this, which we don't see, is the training that these agents and officers go through for an event like this. And from what I saw in the video, that only lasted seconds and took seconds for them to get involved in immediately, is that their training kicked in.
And now here in New York City, we did see a police cruiser stationed outside of Trump Tower in Midtown. The NYPD says there will be extra security measures taken around that area. And New York City Mayor Mamdani also responded on social media saying, quote, "Political violence is absolutely unacceptable. I am glad the president and the guests at the White House Correspondents' dinner are safe." Governor Kathy Hochul also posted on X about the event, writing, "Thankful for the swift response by law enforcement and to the Secret Service at the White House Correspondents' dinner tonight, praying for the safety of everyone in attendance." We will, of course, stay on top of this breaking news and bring you the latest as the investigation into the shooting continues. You can see updates anytime on our website, cbsnewyork.com. Still ahead, springing into action. New video shows a neighbor working to warn others during a deadly fire in Newark.
A drenching and cold day across the tri-state area, but things are looking brighter and warmer to wrap your weekend. I'll have your full First Alert forecast coming up.